Facts.
Well, hello and welcome to the Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We hope you're having a fantastic day out there. Looks like we're going to see some July temperatures in October today. Can you believe this? Temperatures in the mid-20s. Alistair Alder's in the weather this morning suggesting that we could break some temperature records out at the airport. We might even break a temperature over at Shearwater today. It is certainly not feeling a whole lot like October, but it certainly is. And I think some of that heat is emanating into Nova Scotia from Rogers Centre in Toronto, where we watched the Blue Jays last night take a 2-0 lead over the New York Yankees. The Blue Jays are on fire. My goodness, 23 runs in 2 games against the Bronx Bombers. That series, of course, will shift to New York now. That goes tomorrow. That game begins at 9 o'clock Atlantic time, and you'll catch it live right here on 95.7 News Radio. I listened to the game last night. I was here working the Mooseheads game, who won in overtime, by the way, and was driving home and caught Vladimir Guerrero's grand slam on the radio. Is there nothing better, sports fans out there, than listening to a baseball game, old school? I was driving in my vehicle. I was banging my hand against the dash when he hit that home run. It was pretty cool, and I listened to the remainder of the game when I got home on my radio. You'll be able to catch all that action, of course, live right here, as I mentioned. 9 o'clock tomorrow, where the Jays can close out the series. It's a best of 5, so if they win on Tuesday night, it is over. It's off to the American League Championship Series. Fantastic to have October baseball, isn't it? Of course, we mentioned this on Friday. It's a special week here at the Todd Veinotte Show and at 95.7 News Radio right across the board. It's our 20th anniversary week, 20 years ago. This coming Friday, we launched this station along with 2 others in the Maritimes, one in Moncton and one in St. John. And we're going to celebrate that milestone birthday. We're holding a special broadcast on Friday from 10 until 1 down there at the Westin. Vanessa's looking at me funny. Oh, everything's good. We're hosting that episode. When she looks at me like that, normally I've done something wrong. So I'll be down there from 10 until 1. We've got just a whole bevy of special guests and former alumni, former hosts, people that have worked here, people that have been connected to the station coming onto the show. And of course, wide open for you to come down and join us as well. We're going to have a birthday cake down there. We'll have some coffee, some tea, some waters. And you can come by and take some pictures. We'll have a little setup there in the lobby, and I'm very much looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you to Vanessa Van Inez on the other side of the glass, who, in addition to all of the hard work that she does each and every day to keep this show moving in the right direction, has really taken on this anniversary show and is just working behind the scenes to make it all work, and wouldn't be able to do it without her. And I hope that you say hi to her when you come down there. Hopefully she'll get down there. I know she's going to be behind the board for most of it, but we'll try and get her down there at least for a bit so that you can say hi to Vanessa. It is Monday, so enough of me talking. It's time to throw open those telephone lines and welcome into the studio for our weekly Councillors on the Hot Seat segment. District 7 Councillor, that's Halifax South Downtown, and that's Laura White. Laura, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks, Dan. Good morning.
And on the other side of the aisle, so to speak, is District 13. That's Prospect Road. This is all changing. I'm still trying to get used to these new names. Prospect Road, St. Margarets, and that is Nancy Hartling. Nancy, how are you?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
If you have a question for our councillors today, the telephone lines are open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Because I sit in the chair, I get to ask the first question. It's my pleasure to do so, and I know we kind of chatted about this a bit before we came on the air, and was reading an article on this Friday. We saw a new directive come from the province about HRM. This is the Herald article on it. It says, starting now, all HRM is an interim planning area directed by the province. Announced on Friday, the provincial government stepping in with new minimum planning requirements for all of HRM that will take effect immediately. Also, 9 suburban growth neighborhoods that are getting fast-track treatment. The Minister of Municipal Affairs, John Lohr, telling reporters on Friday that we, quote, see an urgency creating this interim planning area is to see projects, growth, and development still continue. Now, that is obviously the first nugget. The second nugget was some of the reaction that I heard and read from members of council with regards to this, and it feels, at least from the research that I've done on this, that this really wasn't communicated very well, and in fact, some councillors finding out the same time that everybody else found out about it on Friday. I'll start with you, Laura. Did you know this was coming, and your thoughts on the province taking this step?
No, I wasn't aware that this particular thing was coming. I mean, I knew our regional plan had been rejected back in August, so I knew that was working away in the background, but I wasn't aware of the announcement. So what do I think? Well, we're going to get an update from staff tomorrow, a little bit more how this affects, but I am disappointed that the regional plan couldn't have been worked out. There were only two things that were mentioned, and then a third about zoning. It felt like it was workable to work those things out. So to delay in this way, it just feels like extra work for HRM staff because we have to work on this interim changes where we...
I'm trying to figure out what it means, right?
Yes, but also it's extra work because we could be working on our suburban plan, which is really important, and we're not. We're back to figuring out the regional plan. So I feel like it's delaying good work on other things. Yeah.
Nancy?
Yeah, thanks very much. No, I also had no knowledge of this up until Friday. What can I say? I'm with Laura in that I'm looking forward to seeing the council presentation on it. We did get it as part of the council agenda. It's a big document. It's a couple hundred pages, so I'm still working my way through it as well. Mm-hmm. I guess, what can I say, right? Like, I really wish that we had some forewarning about some of this. I feel like there's been a lot of discussion going on about how we can move the plan forward. Had we known this all along, then maybe those efforts would have been put elsewhere, if I could say that.
The article said that the mayor spoke with some reporters on Friday at City Hall and said that this was a result of, and I'm quoting here, months of meetings between municipal and provincial planning staff as well as political collaboration. Sounds to me like the mayor knew that this was coming, but the rest of council didn't. Is that your feeling on it, Nancy?
Certainly, that's my position. Yeah, I had no idea.
Nancy?
Yeah, we knew that staff were working on it, and
Right.
obviously we know the mayor's talking to the province. So that's great. Maybe the timing didn't happen the way they thought because it is coming to council on Tuesday, so maybe they didn't know the province would be jumping out with something ahead of council. I'm not sure. But, but we were not aware.
Yeah, that's really fair, actually. In all fairness to the situation, Laura is absolutely right. We knew that planning was working with the province. Like, we knew that those conversations were happening. I just didn't know that putting all of HRM into an interim planning area was the path forward.
The province says this is to keep things moving forward, but as I understood it, and I'm obviously not an expert on this when it comes to planning, but that with the rejection of the regional plan, it reverted back to the old plan. Is that how it worked?
Yeah,
that's correct. So all this interim stuff that we're doing is the minimum planning requirements that the province asked for, and these other suburban things you mentioned, but they're only in addition to the 2014 regional plan. Our nice updated 2025 regional plan is not going to be implemented. So there's a lot missing there.
Well, and I think too, it's worth calling out the rejection of the 2025 regional plan put some pressures on current developments because there was an expectation that the 2025 plan would be approved. So yes. I'm thinking, and Laura, maybe you might want to chime in as well, that this update has something to do with us being able to keep moving forward with those existing developments that were requiring the 2025 plan being in place.
Yeah, we'll learn more tomorrow, but
Yeah.
I don't really understand why we wouldn't just chip away at agreeing on the 2025 plan rather than implementing
It just felt
a patchwork 2014 plan.
Right, and it just felt to me like the province just said, okay, we're done with this and we're moving forward with this, and just to keep this, that maybe wasn't moving fast enough, or that was my feeling on the whole thing.
Yeah, and my concern with interim is interim for how long?
Right.
Like, from what I read, it sounded to me like maybe we won't have a regional plan until phase 5, which my understanding was 2 years out. So that's not good.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's head right to the phones, and we welcome Chris to the show. Chris, how are you?
Not bad, Todd. How are you?
It's Dan, actually. Hope you're having a good day.
Oh, Todd, Dan, I'm sorry about that.
It's all good. It's all good.
I should have that down by now.
Your question for the councillors, please.
Question is for both councillors, but Laura in particular, since she's my councillor. It's about the Halifax Urban Greenway extension to Point Pleasant Park.
Glad you brought it up. I wanted to, too. Go
Oh,
for it.
good. Well,
Good morning, Chris.
I hope I'm not the only one to bring it up. There were 5 options offered. There was a couple of little sessions held over the last few days for people that don't know. You could get some information and so on. And people were asked basically to make a choice as to what they thought would be the best option out of the 5. What are the various costs of these options?
Thank you for asking. One thing I'll just add right now, so we can get it in, is our final info session is on Thursday, October 9th at 4:30 to 8 at St. Mary's. So anybody who hasn't been able to come out yet and do your survey by the 12th. Okay, costs. Costs do not come with these options, but you can kind of tell what's going to cost more. Like, one part of it, adding sidewalks on Franklin, for example, adding sidewalks is costly, as we know. We all want more sidewalks, so that is one part that would have more budget to it. The small active transportation bridge over the railway track would have more cost to it versus just using a local street bikeway that's just paint. So you can kind of look at I'm forgetting the big one. The path through the woods would have a big cost to it because it has lighting involved and paving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a path through there now people have been using for years.
Yeah, and Chris, I would encourage people actually to give their wide open thoughts on it. Don't just give your feedback based on what staff are presenting. Like, give alternate feedback as well, because it's all being taken in, and this is early stage, about 10% design process.
Yeah, well, but how come there's no cost?
We're just not far enough into the project.
But Laura, with all due respect, you guys are asking people to make a decision, to make a choice of 5 options. How can you make a decision or a choice of these 5 options without knowing the various costs? Because the most important thing to the taxpayers of this city is the cost of things. And it should be on your guys' radar as well as being the number one. When you bring a project forward like this for people to make choices on and look at, costs need to be presented to the people to make a proper decision. Do you agree with that or not?
I agree it's relevant, and I've explained the differences in what can cost more and less. And if you dig into the details of what's public, you can see that that's in a chart form, and it says which items are more costly than others. No,
it doesn't say which items are more costly. It gives no costs whatsoever. No one has any costs. There's not a councillor or a staff member down there that has any idea of how much, even remotely how much this is going to cost. And you're saying, Laura, that we as taxpayers should look into the project and estimate ourselves the various construction costs, the lighting costs, all the things that might go along with it. That's complete garbage. We can't do that, and you shouldn't be expected to do it. We don't have the experience generally to say a sidewalk costs this costs that. You guys, when you present this to people to look at and make a choice on, we should know the costs of the various options so that you could pick an option that you wanted. Cost is one of the biggest factors in running this city, is the cost of programs and projects, and you guys are ignoring that.
So is revenue. Also,
well, you're not ignoring that. You were fast enough to raise our property taxes. You're certainly not ignoring that.
Giving that feedback to staff, they did hear it a lot about cost. They're going to take that into consideration. So when they're looking at the options, they're going to know cost is very important to people. So maybe they would present the lowest cost option.
Laura, you're asking us to look at options as taxpayers. You're asking us to look at options now and make a choice as to, out of the 5, the one that we prefer. You can't do it without the costs being there in front of us, and we don't have those costs. I mean, you guys would have no problem at all balancing your budget without increasing property taxes 1 penny if you just cut out all of the unnecessary and unneeded spending. Stick to the things we need, not the wants, but the things we need. The unnecessary stuff has got to go.
Okay, Chris, appreciate it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Councillors on the Hot Seats continues right after the break. All right, welcome back. This is Councillors on the Hot Seat. In the studio, District 7, Halifax South Downtown, Laurel White. District 13's Prospect Road, St. Margaret's, and that's Nancy Hartling. The lines are open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's go back to the phones. We welcome Nicole to the show. Nicole, how are you?
I'm well, Dan. How are you?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
Well, tomorrow is the public hearing on Dartmouth Cove. And I listened to the interview with Brad Hickey on Thursday, I think it was, and I was concerned. He's incredibly adversarial in his language. Even if it sounded slightly calm, he threw up a bunch of red flags. But I want to keep pressing on the issues around conflict of interest, and I really want people to hear this because the structure around conflict of interest is appearing all over the place right now inside of the HRM, including what you were just speaking about before you opened the phone lines. So as most people know, what's happening in Dartmouth Cove, it's not just about the water lot, it's about jurisdiction. And it's not about whether HRM, which is one of the most important municipalities in Canada, the question is it still governing itself, or is it actually slowly being positioned as a precedent for federal and provincial takeover? And if you pay attention to the conflicts of interest, the structure lives inside of that for these potential takeovers and the precedents that get set going forward. So Andy Fillmore, former federal Liberal MP, becomes mayor. He accepts donations from developers with direct interest in the land use file. He refuses to recuse himself despite very clear statutory obligations under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. His predecessor, Mike Savage, who is also a former federal MP, now holds significant influence over the sign-off on provincial decisions as lieutenant governor in council. Then you have MP Darren Fisher, who is currently sitting in Ottawa, but also served with Mayor Fillmore in Ottawa. He appears to be an advocate on Dartmouth Cove, but when he was pressed on the record regarding his conflict of interest with Mayor Fillmore, he went silent and refuses to speak on the matter. That's all three levels of government that appear to be structurally aligned around an agenda, not necessarily with the words that they're using, but in their silences. And then we watched John Travs, the HRM solicitor, set a very dangerous precedent on the council floor when he advised council that campaign donations are not a conflict of interest, even when voting on files where there is a pecuniary interest. And that advice is now on the public record. And then you have the planners who prepared the staff report, who still omitted from the report all conflicts of interest from that report, even after being placed on constructive notice for their fiduciary duty to include them. And so while everybody's saying that there's a jurisdictional issue and that the province is going to come in and that the feds are going to come in, I feel like people don't understand the power of the municipality, and what's actually happening is there's a ceding of jurisdiction to the province and the feds from inside the municipality. And effectively, council is handing their jurisdictional authority over by eroding the legal standards that they're supposed to be held to. And that sets such a dangerous precedent going forward. And now when you're saying that Mayor Fillmore is having conversations with the province that council's unaware of, this is that pattern repeating. And so this is highly concerning. And if we keep getting caught in the minutia of all of the little things that are happening and we stop ignoring the structure that's actually upholding it, it gets really hard to get at the root of the issues.
Nicole, your question for the councillors.
How do the councillors plan on working with Mayor Fillmore, or not even with him, holding him accountable to what he is doing inside of this structure, which appears to be eroding the jurisdictional position of the HRM from the inside out? He does not appear to be working on behalf of the HRM. He appears to be working on behalf of the province and the federal government through his current political ties.
Start with you, Nancy.
Wow, that's a lot. What can I say? I feel like there's not a good, I don't have an answer for you that I think is going to be satisfactory for you at this moment in time. What I can say is that when it comes to Dartmouth Cove specifically, our solicitor, John Traves, he was very clear that Mayor Fillmore is not in a position where he would have to recuse himself from voting based off of campaign contributions. That would be the place that I would start. that is what it is. In terms of all these other relationships, those are relationships that I simply can't speak to, right? Like that's not for me. In terms of my role inside of council, it is our job as council to be active and engaged members and make sure that we as a council reach the best decisions of HRM.
Councillor White?
Thank you. I just wanted to comment that as the municipality, we are a creature of statute, I believe, of the province is how it's phrased. So we are very much a level of government that operates under the province. We're not side by side with them. So we are aware of that and operate that way. But in general, a lot of things have been delegated to us in the past, and we've been left respectfully to work on them. Lately, there's been more input from the province, taking more control over things like transportation and planning that typically we have been left to do. So that's been tricky for us, but we're very much under the province. So, so that's how we operate, and I hope we can continue to operate with the province respectfully and collaboratively.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Dan.
Have a good day. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I got an email question. This one is for you, Nancy. It says, is there any update on the resurfacing at the Hubbard Rec Center's tennis court? Jason writes, I believe it was first planned to be done in 2012, and he's still waiting.
Yeah, so we've actually been chatting about that with Rec for a while. It's actually my hope to not just get it resurfaced, but get it resurfaced and also used as an outdoor pickleball court. Pickleball is, I don't know, that's a hot topic in District 13 and beyond. So that's really my hope. I know that it wasn't scheduled for this year. Money is tight everywhere, unfortunately, but I know that I am pushing very, very hard to get Hubbard's not just get the court redone, but see if there's an opportunity for us to turn it into a pickleball court as well.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Caught council a couple of weeks ago, your last meeting, and I don't know if it was a slip of the tongue or maybe just a bit of a warning as you guys are getting ready to head back into budget deliberations. But that number of 10% kind of got kicked around.
It's bad.
Then that's, we see this traditionally, right?
Yep.
We see this every year. We get a number and then you guys go to work and
we whittle it down.
But that's kind of what you're working off of this year's. You're at least at a 10% deficit this time around?
Yeah, I think it's right around there. And I think it's part of the thing to know, too, is that we're also working from a place like a false bottom because we spent reserve funding last budget to get us to zero, right? So we're not quite in the same place as we were in other periods because in this instance, we spent reserves not on capital projects, but on services. So when you do that, we are in a different place. So we have brand new ground to cover. And I think what's the number? What are we walking in? How far behind are we? I think it might be 60 million.
I remember talking about 60 million. I heard 40 lately. So we've got a big job in front of us. Yeah. My interest is in long-term sustainability, and we're never going to get there if we keep digging into reserves to get a flat tax.
Well, and that's my next question is been doing this a long time, and we start at a number, we whittle it down, we find efficiencies, we find savings, we find that. Is there the potential of us getting to a point where there's just no more fat left to cut off?
So I think that was my concern last budget when we came to the table with the idea of spending reserves. I know that both Laura and we were not in favor of that at that time. Like, I think that is an important exercise. I think it's important that you not spend reserves first and then do that exercise after. I don't see it, and I don't see that work being done still. I think that there has been some movement in terms of staffing, meaning that there were positions that were available that are no longer available. Like they aren't actively staffing some positions, but I haven't seen the big, here's our big plan to find $60 million. I have not seen that.
Councillor White?
Yes. So if we're cutting too much, that's going to mean service cuts.
Yeah.
I'm just very interested in looking long-term and making it make sense. Like, we need to have revenue coming in that matches what's going out. And it's really important that we get our land use planning right so that our property taxes coming in and whatever other revenue tools we can use are matching what we need to spend on those areas. Right now, they don't match. Like a lot of the areas of HRM are being subsidized by more dense areas, and that's just not working going forward. We need to fix that with tax reform and other issues.
And I can hear the fingers typing on the keyboards right now that $70 million in bike lanes that, quote, nobody wants would be an easy cut. Is active transportation on up for discussion during this budget cycle?
Everything's up for discussion.
Yeah.
The capital budget comes to us, and we talk about. Honestly, we talk about some things we shouldn't be talking about. They're too small to.
There's no doubt about it. Capital.
Everything's on the table.
Yeah, the capital budget will no doubt be part of that dialogue at budget time.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues right after the news. All right, welcome back. This is Councillors on the Hot Seat in the studio. District 13 Councillor, that's Nancy Hartling. District 7 Councillor Laura White, and they're here to answer your questions. So lots of lines open if you want to get on. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Nancy, an email question for you. To kick things off here, it says, has there been any discussion on an all-weather field for Bayview High School sports teams?
Yes, there has been some discussion, and oh my goodness, I am quite excited. I wish I could tell you that it was a sure thing and we're ready to do it. That's absolutely not the case. We need really all levels of government to come on board, including the municipality, but absolutely all levels of government need to come to the table. So the challenges with Bayview Field in the list of challenges is that, one, it's really not a great field and it's not really well maintained. The second is that it doesn't have lights. So obviously when you're playing football into the fall, not having a lighted field is, super problematic. So right now, Bayview High, they have to travel as far as Bedford, like CP Allen, and they're playing at 9 and 11 o'clock at night in Bedford. Like it's not right? Like that's not good. The problem is that HRM does not typically light fields that aren't all-weather fields because of the damage that you can do to a field when it's not actively being maintained, and HRM doesn't maintain those fields into the months when you would actually use those lights. So the issue becomes, is there an opportunity for us to turn this into, all-season, all-weather field? That's a big investment, a big investment. It takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of community. It needs momentum from all levels of government. So that's where we are right now, is trying to build that momentum. But don't ever wonder, I want it so bad. I want it so bad.
Doesn't get any clearer than that. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Very quickly, one for you, Councillor White. It's coming before council, I think, this week. And that is the Spring Garden Road transit corridor, and the recommendation, at least as I understand it, is to move away from that plan. Is that something you support, and why do we need to move away from it?
I'm okay with moving away from it. I understand the staff report. Basically, to do it right, you need infrastructure. Signage doesn't work.
No, we saw that.
Paying police officers to stand there is unrealistic. So the infrastructure needed to do it is expensive. And when we're looking at BRT, which is super important to us, we really need help with it. We might want to do more of a transit priority corridor on Spring Garden, like farther. So it doesn't make sense to put infrastructure just for that piece when perhaps they'd want to do it longer in the future. So trying to look at it more holistically for our big transportation moves than right now. So it's unfortunate. It would have been nice to see it go forward, but it doesn't make sense right now.
And before we go to the phones, Nancy, you support that?
What's that?
Moving away from the transportation corridor?
Yeah.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Jay's been on hold for a while. Jay, how are you? Jay, are you there?
Oh, sorry.
Welcome to the show. You're on the air. What's your question for the councillors?
Alrighty. So I had kind of a stressful time yesterday trying to access our big main hospital right in the middle of our city, as for some reason the CIBC Run for the Cures route completely blocked access to the hospital from about 3/4 of the sides. So I'm that's not even the main part of my issue. It's that when I approached the police officers that were on duty managing intersections for the run, none of them could tell me how I could get to the hospital.
That's a bit concerning.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor White?
Yeah, there were approved shutdowns for the roads for the parade. I had those coming through, so I could follow up with those people to make sure that's better communicated next time. Could do that, but yeah, I'm not aware of what was put in place.
Where it happened on a Sunday, there weren't the same level of radio news programs that could give us an update on day of.
Right.
And I was trying to drive my uncle to visit my aunt who's in the hospital, and it was an absolute shit show trying to get over to that hospital.
Okay. Jay, did you eventually get there?
My uncle had to walk from the bottom of Jubilee at Summer Street because we couldn't turn left.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Anyway, we'll pass that to the councillors and see if we can get some answers for you.
There we go. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Obviously, when there's closures, Nancy, there should be at least access to the hospital, one would think, right?
Yeah.
I don't know the situation, but Jubilee in Summer is right where the hospital is. That's pretty close.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not door to door, but
shouldn't have to walk. If you should be, you have at least
what
one
I
road
would say, and this is something that comes up a lot, certainly amongst councillors. I know that it's come up at council. Is just the way that HRM communicates to the residents of HRM. I think that there's a big opportunity for improvement. We talk about it all the time.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Glenn to the program. Glenn, how are you?
Good, Dan. Good morning, councillors. And Dan, I don't call in a lot, but I'm a very long-time listener, and I spoke to some of the councillors when you were hosting for Todd when he was in Vegas. But my main question, big question for the councillors is the council, the mayor, the police association, the registry of motor vehicles, the province, the premier waiting for a percentage of the population, mostly young, to end up hospitalized with brain injuries or end up in wheelchairs for life or possibly dead because of the Wild Wild West no-law scooter takeover on the sidewalks and streets. They are driving on the sidewalks with earphones on, no helmets, 2 people on one scooter. There is zero policy. They are going to injure themselves or innocent people walking on the sidewalks.
We'll start with Councillor. Sorry, Glenn, go ahead.
Someone with authority should grow a spine and spearhead a policy to get these scooters off the streets and sidewalks and end this ridiculous pilot project.
I'll start with you, Councillor White.
Thank you. There's a lot going on there. Our pilot project is a 2-year project, and I too am trying to be patient and give my feedback. It is extremely important when you do see someone on a rental scooter on a sidewalk, make sure that is reported to 311 or directly to Bird, because they do have geolocation, and the more information they can get about where people are in violation, the more they can adopt their software to work. It's obviously not working yet because I still see it all the time. So we have that issue, and we can be proactive there and give feedback. The other issue is with private ownership of these things. So they are supposed to be on the road. They can be in bike lanes, but they can't be on sidewalks. And even if you're a kid, so normally you could do a push scooter on the sidewalk, you cannot ride an e-scooter on the sidewalk. So those need to be on the roads. So if parents are letting their kids have these things, they need to teach them to be on the roads. Doing a lot of communication with police. Police are trying to do their best there, having some conversations, and residents are calling too to junior high schools because this is kind of the age that we're seeing the kids. So we are trying to work on it from a couple angles.
And I would say too, not to interrupt you, Laura, there is a micromobility bylaw.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not that we don't have rules, it's just that they're not widely known. And I would say that they're probably not, well enforced.
That was my next point. It's an enforcement piece,
it's an enforcement thing. So, and that's also worth because I know that I've brought it up. We meet with, whether it's police or RCMP, we meet with them monthly, and I know that that's been on the table quite a bit. So there is awareness that we all need to be doing a better job, and we all, on all sides, we all need to figure out how to share this road together. Part of that education also needs to happen with the scooter folks. That just needs to happen. But it's not that we don't have any rules in place. It's just that they're not greatly enforced.
Another piece of it is Councillor Cuddle had brought a motion to Transportation Standing Committee to take a look at the pilot and where we are with
yeah,
following.
She did. Yeah.
Is there, in that micromobility bylaw, does it regulate speeds and those kind of things? Because from personal experience, I've been driving down some pretty busy streets in HRM, and those scooters are keeping up to my vehicle and sometimes getting past me. So they're going really fast, and I wouldn't personally. With 2 feet off the ground like that, I would be petrified to be riding it. But I know with e-bikes, the provincial law it's a certain amount of watts that you can have. I think
it's 32 or 34 kilometers, right. And after that, 30. You're on your own steam. Right. It can only go into about that
because they really move along and they're weaving in traffic and such.
Yeah, and that's part of it. Is sometimes a driver may underestimate the speed that a bike can get up to now because they can go pretty fast. Yeah.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it. We're up against the break. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues right after this.
Axe.
All right, welcome back. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues right until the top of the hour. Lines are open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's go right to the phones, and we will welcome Gloria to the program. Gloria, how are you?
Oh, I'm great, Dan. Good morning to you and councillors, and what another beautiful day. And, Dan, that was some ball game.
Wasn't it?
It got a little edgy at the end.
I thought in this fifth inning I could hear you screaming all the way from Dartmouth.
No, I was a little scared when, all it takes is bases loaded and a home run.
Right, absolutely.
So it was a little scary. My question this morning, first of all, I want to speak about bylaws. Why do we keep putting in bylaws knowing that we don't have the personnel to enforce them? It's a joke. I used to ask that question when I was in council, when we're putting in a bylaw. Are we going to be able to enforce this? If not, let's not bother. So that's what happens, and it becomes a joke. Everybody, does what they want to do. Anyway, my question is for Councillor White. Councillor White, I don't know you, but I hear you're a very avid cyclist, and I know you support any bicycle lane, no matter what the cost. But I have a question.
That is not accurate.
Oh, isn't it? Well, I watch the council meetings.
Okay.
So I'm speaking about what I see and what I hear. But anyway, my question, Councillor White, is talking about conflict of interest. If I was to look at your donations, would I find anybody from the Cycling Coalition who donated to your campaign?
I have to pause because I don't think so. I don't know.
You don't know?
No,
you don't know who donated to your campaign?
Well, my husband was my agent, so he took most care of it. But mostly who donated, my dad. It was people I know, my neighbors. You can look, but
public,
you will not see a big.
Yeah.
No, but David Truman is not on my list. Let's just say that. Pardon me?
Would you be in conflict if they did?
No, because I have my own feelings about cycling. It really doesn't have anything
No, but
to
everybody
do with
has their own feelings about everything. But
Sure.
If somebody from the coalition donated to your campaign, would you be in a conflict?
According to John Traves, no.
No, but according to what you have to say. Because you don't agree with John Traves on the mayor thing.
I didn't say
that. No, nobody has
either.
said that, Gloria.
No one has said that.
Well, that's what I gather from it. But so if John Traves tells you you're okay, you're okay. So we can assume that the mayor doesn't have any conflict then.
That's what we've been told.
Yeah. We both just said that.
That's what you believe now.
I don't know I'm really not sure how I feel about it, but it was very clear from John Traves that campaign donations.
Yeah, I know. I watched it all.
Yeah,
I see everything. So anyway, I just had that question, Laura. You might look and see if any of those people donated, and then consider whether you are in a conflict. Anyway, have a great day. Thanks again.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I think, as an outsider looking in on it, if I'm working for an organization, let's say HRM, and I'm a counselor, and the solicitor says I'm okay, I'm probably going to go with that because I'm not a lawyer, and that's kind of the advice that you have to go with. I mean, counselors go with advice from staff all the time, I think, right? Is that how that works?
We can't get a second opinion, so we kind of have to take it with a grain of salt and decide if we're going to take the advice or not.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Back to the phones. We welcome Shelley to the show. Shelley, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good. Your question for the counselors, please.
I'm just wondering, is there any law or restrictions on these ear pads that people are, whatever they're called, they're stuck in their ears listening to music? No matter where you go today, we have a bunch of people working on the Bedford Highway construction, as you know, they're paving it. And these people literally have to see you to know you're there. They don't hear you. You talk to them, they don't hear you. You have to be looking at them. I walked by the Halifax Shopping Centre there a week ago, and there was people doing some work on the sidewalks, paving and whatnot. And you think you could get their attention with your horn or your car? Not a chance. You have to get out of your car, walk up to them, and touch them on the shoulder to get their attention. Why is it every single person in this world today has to have music in their ear to do work? When I was working, I went to work to work. If I went into my office and sat at my desk and plugged in something in my ear to listen to music, how long do you think I'd be working? I'd be fired that day. So why is there no law? I mean, hell, they go to work, they get paid to work, not be able to listen to some favorite song they like. I think there should be a ban, and when they're working, it should not be allowed.
Thanks for the call, Shelley. Counselors? I more along the lines of to the bylaw with scooters and those kind of things. I know that workplace and that's different jurisdictions and everything else, but is there you're more of an active cyclist than I am, Councillor White.
I know of. And I'm just going to comment on this avid cyclist thing.
Sure.
I don't know what that means.
You're much more avid than I am because I haven't ridden a bike in 25 years.
Sure, but I use this bike for transportation.
Right.
I do it because it's the cheapest thing for me. It's the most convenient thing for me. So, it's not... Anyhow. What are we talking about? Earphones. I don't know that there's any bylaw or any kind of law against wearing them or not. I mean, you need to pay attention to what you're doing. You can't... Distracted driving is a thing, so if you're distracted, you can't... You could be fine. For my kids, I just tell them to have one in if they're going to have an earphone while you're either walking around or doing anything. I don't know what the rule is.
Yeah, I agree. Just I have two teenagers, and what can I say? Like, they always have earphones in, or it's certainly not rare to see them have earphones in. It's definitely a different culture, a different idea. For my part, I kind of like going for a walk and listening to a podcast. For example, I do my part and make sure that I'm paying attention. I try not to keep my head down. There's a difference between having your earphones in and looking at your phone, for example. But I do that. I go for walks. I listen to, I like to listen to the news, podcasts are, for me anyway, one of the ways that I intake information and that. So
Vanessa's shaking her head too. She's got headphones in her.
She's got headphones in right now too.
But we of course are all listening to the podcast of the Todd Veinotte Show that's available anywhere.
I do though. I really do.
Where you can get that anywhere where you download your podcasts, and of course you can catch us on your streams and you can listen to the show live. Anyway, we're almost out of time, counselors. Anything going on in your district you want to pass along, Councillor Hartling?
Yeah, I just want to give everybody the update. Thursday, October 9th at 7 p.m. at St. Luke's United in Upper Tantallon, the Ingram River Wilderness Action Group, they are having a volunteer meeting. If you want to learn more about the Ingram River Wilderness Area or efforts around conservation of that, by all means,
I asked the Premier that question. He didn't even know about it.
Oh, it's a big deal in St. Margaret's.
It really is. Absolutely. And Councillor White, what's going on in District 7?
Well, I just wanted to come back to the regional plan conversation we're having to note that between the 8th and the 24th of October is the comment period for the latest news there. So phone, email, in-person meetings as requested is what we read. Also industry workshops. So I would just encourage people to give their feedback both to HRM and the province.
Okay.
For District 7, we mentioned the Urban Greenway again. So that's Thursday the 9th, 4:30 to 8 p.m. at Daphne Centre at St. Mary's. I wanted to give a shout out to St. Mary's students. The Enactus group won World Championship. That's an entrepreneurship
It's very cool
contest. It's super cool. So
yeah.
Shout out to them. That's it.
Councillor Waite, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Councillor Hartling, appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
You can catch the both of them and the rest of council on at the meeting tomorrow. Make sure you watch them because there's always lots of fun things that come out of those council meetings. We're going to stop. We're going to take another break here on the program. When we come back, it's time to open up the phone lines for our very first open hour of the week. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Lots to talk about, and the beauty of the open hour is you can talk about whatever is on your mind. But I do have a question for you. There's an MP in Ottawa that is considering putting some legislation forward that would eliminate daylight savings time. No more falling back, no more springing forward. Is that something you want to see end in Canada? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour. After the news.
Acts.
Welcome back to the Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. It's time now for the open hour. Lines are open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. This is your opportunity to talk about whatever it is on your mind. That's the beauty of an open hour. One of the questions I did have, and it kind of popped up late last week and we didn't get to it, and I thought I would ask you this because I know around the radio station here and in my social circle, daylight savings time is a thing, right? Daylight savings time, for those of, or saving time, don't want to make a mistake there. For those of you that don't know, it is when we, of course, fall back and spring forward, right, in an effort to increase daylight hours. And I think the practice has become quite antiquated, and I think that there are a number of jurisdictions, even in this country, but around the world, that have just gotten away from changing your darn clock twice a year every year. Should we get rid of it? Daylight savings time. Clock falls back on the first Sunday in November, so we've got about a month to go before we have to do that. Ottawa MP Marie-France Lalonde plans to introduce a bill to get rid of it. My question to you today, should we do away with daylight savings time? Saving time. Daylight saving time. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That's the question. Also, if you were listening to our most recent conversation just a few moments ago with our councillors on the hot seat, a couple of things came out of that discussion that have my brain kind of going into the question mode. One of them was the discussion over the budget. Right, that number, that 10% number, that $60 million or $40 million that council is looking at in deficit. That means about a 10% increase in tax at this point. Now, y'all been down this road before. I've been down this road many times with regional council, where we say, okay, you know, the budget estimate now is at X number. We'll just use 10 for easy math, but that's the number that they're kicking around. Then the budget process begins, and we whittle away our savings. We whittle away at efficiencies, and then all of a sudden, the day that the final budget tally comes in, and lo and behold, we're at zero. Now, I don't want to put words into the mouth of the two councillors that we just had on the air, but it sounded to me like that we may be coming to an end to that. And the reason why I say that is there was a lot of discussion last year, just before council came in with that flat tax rate. Now, I know your taxes went up. My taxes went up. Everybody's taxes went up because of the provincial assessment, right? But the municipal rate was held at zero. But we had to spend into reserve to make that happen. To me, it's akin to robbing Peter to pay Paul. Right? We just kick that down the road, and eventually we're going to kick that down the road, and it's going to fall off the cliff. And just put this into your calculator that if they're unable to come up with savings, they'll find some. But if they're unable to come up with savings this time around, we could be looking at a 10% increase in your municipal taxes, and then tack on your property tax assessment to that. And then couple in those two big increases in power bills in 26 and 27, and then that 30%-ish increase in your water bill. Ouch, right? 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to the phones. We welcome Joe to the show. Joe, how are you?
I've been better, Dan.
What's
but thanks for asking.
What's on your mind?
Your question: daylight savings time is a waste of time and discussion. It should be done away with. It should have been done away with decades ago. But
I never really understood it. Like particularly in our part of the world, it doesn't really seem to make much of a difference.
Do away with it.
Okay.
Get rid of the damn thing. We've got enough problems to worry about. Let's just get something done instead of talking everything to death. Let's get things done. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Joe. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. It really doesn't seem to make much difference, does it? You know, we fall back and everybody gets that hour back, which is celebrated. And then the spring, we spring forward, we lose an hour of sleep. Everybody's getting in car accidents and their circadian rhythms are all out of whack. And for what? An extra what? 10 minutes, 15 minutes of daylight when you're at work? I think it's a waste of time. I think we should get rid of it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome George to the program. George, how are you?
Not too bad, sir. How are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, first of all, I totally disagree with the person who just called. Daylight saving time, we're on it over 70% of the year. People who drive to work when it changes to standard time, if you're driving any distance at all to go to Halifax or anything, if you're on standard time, you're driving in the dark, you're coming home in the dark. If you're on daylight saving time, you drive in the dark when the time changes and you're coming back still daylight. Anybody who works in an office can come out and play golf after, play 18 holes of golf instead of 9.
In November?
Because of the extra hour. Well, maybe not September, but certainly in July and August and those months.
All right.
And we work outside, and when the time changes in the fall of the year, in November, at 4 o'clock, it's almost dark. And if you're trying to do work, we're in the Christmas tree business. If you try to do work and load a container or something like that, it's almost impossible to see. You've got to bring in lights and everything else. And I just can't understand, if you're on daylight saving time over 70% of the year, why you would want to go to something that you're on only little over 30% of the year. The second thing is Sunday hunting. The Premier, in his wisdom, or whatever you want to call it, extended the hunting season by another week, the deer hunting season, so it doesn't get over until the second Saturday in December.
Right.
And that is the busiest weekend of anybody in the Christmas tree business who has a choose and cut operation. They've extended the hunting season by 13 Sundays. There's now 15 Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
So before, when the woods closed, you had all kinds of calls about people who couldn't go for a walk. They're sure as hell not going to be able to go for a walk now during the rifle season, the deer hunting season. I certainly wouldn't want my children out or wouldn't want to be out on the trail trying to go for a walk on a Sunday. There was no input whatsoever from any of the landowner organizations who own all the private land in Nova Scotia. And these hunters are a very, very selfish group of people. Everything done. They want things done for them, but they don't want any of the input from the people whose properties they involve. We've had at least 3 rifles discharged within 100 feet of people I have working in the woods in the last number of years. And you have no idea. How would you like if the Premier made a rule that anybody could come and do what they wanted to on your front lawn? They could drive their ATVs on it, or they could come on and have a picnic or anything like that. And we're very upset, I can tell you that, about this additional number of times that they can hunt on Sundays. And anybody who has bought a piece of land out in the country that lives in the city and they want to get away from the noise or everything, now they can't even go for a walk on their own land without the fear of the possibility of somebody shooting at them. And now that you can have a 12-year-old carrying a rifle, and if they're going to have 12-year-olds carry rifles, that's fine, but they better lower the Young Offenders Act to 12 instead of letting them all hide behind 17.
George, very quickly.
Those are my comments, but
sure.
Believe me, they're comments of a lot of people who own land, and there are between 40 and 50,000 of us in Nova Scotia, and some of them are huge landowners, some of them are small landowners. But we're very, very upset with this move.
George, you mentioned you're in the Christmas tree industry. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask what the season, upcoming season's looking like with all of the crazies and tariffs south of the border.
Well, so far there aren't any tariffs that we're aware of, but our main concern is the lack of water.
Right.
I mean, we've got to have some rain before the fall and before we start to harvest, because otherwise we could be into a big problem.
Appreciate the call, sir.
I appreciate your listening. Give me the opportunity. You have a good day.
That's what we do here. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour continues right after the break. All right, welcome back. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. It is the Manic Monday Open Hour. A couple of lines available for you if you like to join the conversation. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We took a call during Councillors on the Hot Seat about people wearing earbuds in their ears, and somebody had give us a call and said, well, maybe the person that called was seeing was people wearing ear defenders on a job site. That could be very well the case, particularly if it's a construction zone. I know that there are safety rules that have to apply, but I don't think I'm speaking out of school when I have passed through one of the several road construction zones in and around HRM this summer, watching somebody that was working as a flagger, the one with the sign that goes slow and stop, with a white iPhone earbud in one ear. So maybe a little bit of both, but it certainly does happen. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Where are we here? Let us welcome Ron to the program. Ron, how are you?
Hi, Dan. Good topic.
Yeah. Lots of calls.
I just can't stand that time change thing. I think it's just ridiculous. Should have been stopped a long time ago. But I want to ask you something. Do you remember, I don't know how many years ago it was, but we used to change the time in November. It was later in November. And then they changed it back by about 3 weeks to the beginning of November.
Yeah, they changed that. Has it been 10 years maybe?
I think so, more, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, if they can do that, they must have had did they take a vote or something? How did they change that? And if they can do that, why can't they just get rid of this thing altogether?
Well, there are a number of jurisdictions in Canada that I think is it Saskatchewan that just doesn't do it. They just don't change their time. They just keep it where it is,
and
right?
There's another one in northern Quebec, in the small town there, that they don't change it. Now, how did they get away with that? In the Northwest Territories, they just changed it to get rid of it. I mean, and you get Ontario and you got BC that want it. They want to change it, but they have to rely on the states to do it. And also, when Trump was putting forth all these changes that he was going to do when he got elected, that was one of his things that he wanted to change. And that's actually been put forth in Congress, and it was passed. So I don't know why it's been delayed, but the states want it in certain parts. And within Canada, it's a provincial thing, isn't it? It's not a federal thing to change, right?
I assume. I don't know 100%, but I think you're probably right.
Yeah, I just was wondering, why can't the four maritime provinces get together and decide, yes or no, Take a vote on it. I don't know how they change it, but I just don't get it. So right now we're going to change it in November.
Yep.
4 months later, we got to change it back. What's the advantage of that? I don't understand that part. Why people think that's so great. just, how's it change your life? I just don't, it's just I understand the way back, like when the farmers, that's what they go back to, but way back then, yes, the farmers needed light, more light to.
Yeah, but farmers work from sun up to sundown anyway. It doesn't matter what the time change is, right?
Yeah, and plus nowadays, they have these huge lights on their equipment. They don't care whether it's, I just don't get it all. It's just, I hope somebody can do something about this, because I don't know, today's world, I don't think people really care one way or the other, but I think majority of people would like to keep it the way it is.
Ron, appreciate it.
Okay.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We welcome Len to the show. Len, how are you?
Well, I'm going to say it's a beautiful summer day today.
It is, for October.
It's already 24 degrees, for God's sake. I love it. You know what they call this type of year, though, don't you? It's called Indian summer.
Okay.
Anyway, I just want to say two things quickly, and I'll leave it with you. When it comes to government, they're the worst ones when it comes to forming a budget, or to even when they're operating for the 4 years that they're in, that they can control the amount of money that they spend on things that we don't need and on things that we do need. Like, for example, right now, it's gone now, but the bike lanes, they wanted to spend $100 million on bike lanes, and yet we don't have that kind of money. And so why are we bothering with things that could be delayed for God knows how long? I mean, I'm a businessman. I'm not going to spend money on things if I don't have that money. I'm going to wait till I have that money. I'm a very frugal person. I don't buy things unless I can afford it and I can pay for it. Yet the government, these people that we put in office there, it's for some reason or other, they just like to say yes to a lot of things. It doesn't matter to them. They're getting big salaries themselves, and most of them don't pay for a lot of things. They don't pay for gas, half of them. They get their gas free. So they're not good business people that you'd want running your business. I think the other thing I was going to say just quickly is with the time changing, we're wasting our time even talking about it, really, Dan, because unless the United States does the same thing, we're not going to change. We only change when they do. And just for example, they delayed go back to standard time, and the same thing with daylight saving time. Because they did it, we went with it. So it's no use discussing something that we can't do unless the people across the border are going to do the same thing. Anyway, you have a good day.
Thanks, Len. 902-405-6000 and 1-877-801-8255. You can't really argue with a lot of Len's points this time around, right? The government, let's take the province, for example, coming up with a budget, and then in February that already had showed a $697 million deficit. And then in September, coming back and saying, well, no, that's kind of grown up now. It's $1.2 billion. Just think about that for a minute. $1.2 billion in deficit. That's money spent over what was budgeted. And we've talked about this, and we've done the numbers, and we know that we spend a whole ton of money just to service that debt. And Len's right. It just seems like they can't, for whatever reason, spend within your means. But I think many of you out there will agree with me that the reason why a good portion of these things that get announced in specific areas and specific ridings and so on and so forth is because that curries favor upon the government of the day. And anybody that studied political science will tell you that the very first job of a government once elected is to get reelected. And a little bit of money here, a sprinkle of cash there, a project here goes a long way to do that. Despite the fact that the province is going to run a $1.2 billion deficit. We're going to stop. We're going to take another break. We're going to get an update on what's going on in the news. On the other side of it, the open hour will continue. Lots of lines available if you want to get on. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Should we get rid of daylight saving time? Whatever it is on your mind. That's the beauty of the open hour. Again, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the break. Welcome back. Open hour continues here on the Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. Hope you're having a great day. 902-405-6000 is the number, or 1-877-801-8255. Let us go back to the phones and welcome Mike to the show. Mike, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
Canada Post.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should be. I think personally it should be an essential service. That you should have a timely delivery of mail to your address. Timely, and that if the Crown Corporation can't run it, it should be taken back under the envelope of the government. Do away with the Crown Corporation, let the government run it. And it's not so much for personal, communicating with your relatives and friends and family and that. You can do that by Zoom. But when it comes to commerce,
right,
getting your license, getting your MSI card, getting your insurance, it all comes by mail. And I'll tell you, it's important stuff. And I mean, sure, the letter bombings might be down, but there's still billions and billions of pieces of mail that are essential to the public for the running of our economy. And I haven't heard one politician at the municipal, provincial, or federal level try to stick up for Canada Post as it is today. They want to say it's in debt. Well, I don't care if it's in debt. It provides an essential service that the public need. And if you don't think they need it, I'll point out a few examples. If you got a driver's license, you need insurance. You need insurance on your house.
Mm-hmm.
You need insurance on everything. If you don't get it, you're up a creek. They mail you a letter about 6 weeks before your payments are due.
Mm-hmm.
You want to renew with us, or you lose it. You got an opportunity. You send them the money. They're going to mail you back a letter telling you how they're covering you. Thank you for your business. But it's all done by the mail. Your MSI card is renewed every 5 years. Your license is renewed every 5 years, maybe sooner. That all comes by the mail, and it's an essential service. So I can sit here all day and into next week telling you everybody who needs the post office at one time or another to deliver the mail in a timely fashion to them. Because if you don't get your mail timely and your insurance policy on your house goes lapse and it burns down, you're up a creek without a paddle. And the government, you go to the government with your MSI card, it's mailed to you.
Yep.
To renew it. And if you go to the dentist now, the pharmacist, the doctor, the hospital, what's the first thing they ask for you? That comes by mail. Your licenses, it's the same thing. And if you need a medical on your license, you got to go to the doctor and get the form said, take them to the motor vehicle or mail them to the motor vehicle. And if you don't do that, it's commerce. And it's a Crown Corporation. If it's going to go down the tubes, they can't run it. They're costing billions, I don't know, over the lifetime, say over the last 20 years. How many millions of dollars has been lost by the union and management at Canada Post not agreeing? It's caused a lot of conflict with the people that need the post. You might run a newspaper business, a little one, and you need the post and get your parcels delivered. Your mail is delivered in a timely fashion based on weight, best service going at the price, anywhere in the Canada or the world. You could be in a Nunavut. You could be anything. You could be in a desolate community. They'll deliver your mail to you. I don't blame the postal workers. It's not, why is it their fault? They got a job. They do their job. People complain about what they do. If you didn't have that person delivering your mail to you, you're going to be up shit creek within a year, big time. If you're a person on welfare, say if you went and you're went bankrupt, no bank will deal with you. The postman's got to come with your checks. You take them to a money market somewhere, and they get their kick to cash your check. Right now, it's essential service. they're going to deliver your check to you now because it's an essential service. They know there's going to be a lot of crap to pay if you don't get your checks. Old people, women, men, kids, allowances, you need the money. That's what the Postal Service is for. And you sit down and think of all the things that you do every day that you need something through the mail that you might. You're retired. Any financial institution that runs your business for you, takes care of you, will send you a quarterly or yearly a statement of what they're doing for you.
You can get a lot of that stuff online, though, Mike. You really can.
It doesn't matter. You don't get it online all the time.
I got my driver's license renewed. I went down to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and I got my license done on site. I did my car insurance the last time over.
They mail it to you, brother.
Hey?
Where are you going to get your license? They mail it to you.
No, they get it right there. Well, the hard copy they'll mail to you, yes, but I mean they give you a temporary copy, right?
When Todd pulls you over, when Todd comes back to work and the cop pulls him over, and he's got no insurance on that car.
But you can download that card. Like I
know what you can
right?
do, but maybe everybody can't download it, brother.
I understand, Mike, and hey, I appreciate the call. I'm just up against the break here. I get it, and I understand it, and there are a number of people out there that can't or don't want to use digital stuff. I get it. But my only concern with what Mike had to say was if we boot Canada Post to become an arm of the government, not a crown corporation, but an actual department of the government, it's already losing money, right? What happens when things get federalized? They lose money even more. Mike, I understand it. I totally do. But it's going to get to the point because it's not reliable anymore, and we're in these constant labor situations. This is twice this year that people are going to find alternative ways to do things. It's just that simple. Let's welcome Joe back to the show. Joe, how are you?
The same as I was the first time I talked to you, Dan. I appreciate the encore performance. But what George referred to afterward, we're on the same page, George and I. He just didn't. I didn't clarify what I meant.
Okay, quickly.
I didn't mean to get rid of daylight savings time. What I want to get rid of is this damn switching back and forth.
Understood.
If you want daylight savings time, accept it, and we'll live with that all year. But this back and forth is BS, and I'm sick of it, and I think most people are. And I'll reiterate what I said the first time. Let's stop talking everything to death and get off our asses and do something about it. This is a kind of an inconsequential thing in terms of getting it accomplished. And you want daylight savings time? Fine. Let's keep it. But let's stop this flopping back and forth. That's what I have issue with. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Joe. 902-405-6000. We're up against the break. We're going to take it. The open hour continues on the other side. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're back in minutes.
Axe.
Welcome back. Just a few minutes left here before the top of the hour. A few minutes left in the open hour. 902-405-6000 is the number. 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Jim to the show. Jim, how are you?
Not too bad, Dan. How are you?
Good. What's on your mind, sir?
Good. I'm just calling in reference to the gentleman that called frustrated about the hunting, and he's a Christmas tree farmer.
Right.
I have quite a bit of empathy for his situation. I mean, I'm a senior now, and I've hunted forever.
Mm-hmm.
I handled my first firearm when I was 9 years old. So I, too, along with a couple of buddies, we used to hunt out in New Germany way, which, as you're probably aware, is big for Christmas trees. And what we always did is we contacted the gentlemen, the people that owned the land, and sought permission to hunt. And we had such a good relationship with one particular Christmas tree farmer that he would put up a big plywood sign and it would say, for our benefit, it would say, no hunting this side today. And he would move it to one side of the road or the other. And we always respected our distances. I would suggest that, I understand his frustration. I would suggest that maybe he puts up some no hunting signs when his folks are in the woods, or if he doesn't want anybody in the woods at all, put no hunting signs up, and then when he sees people, just call the enforcement folks, Lands and Forests, or whoever it might be. But one thing he did say that is not correct. He indicated that there were 15 Sundays There's actually only 13 Sundays. 11 were added. There was already 2.
Already was 2, yeah.
Yeah, so there's 13 in total. 11 have been added. And as far as hunting, when they're as young as 12 years old, let's remember they have to be in the accompaniment of somebody with a license.
Right.
Somebody that's licensed, an adult. And to me, it's the way I raised my children, both of them, boy and a girl. They both are firearms owners and operators, but they're taught respect for the firearm. They're taught respect for the law. They're taught respect for landowners. They don't just go about the country willy-nilly. And I think that a lot of people are being painted by a brush. Perhaps this gentleman doesn't hunt or hasn't hunted before. It's kind of like when the Ecology Action Center got their nose into the business of the spring bear hunt. Stay in your lane, please. If you don't know about it, educate yourself.
Jim,
and I guess that's all I wanted to point out.
Sure, Jim, and I'll add to that, and you're right. I think that that hunters in general are often painted with the same brush. And I too started hunting at a very young age, and was at literally at the heel of my father the entire time. There are irresponsible hunters out there. I think you'll agree with me on that. I think
Absolutely.
that there's 35-year-olds that I wouldn't want to be in the woods alone with a firearm. Never mind a 12-year-old.
Absolutely.
And I think that what he was describing are those irresponsible hunters. I get it. All it takes is one bullet to have a tragedy, right? I totally understand that.
Yeah.
But I think the majority of Nova Scotia hunters are responsible hunters. And I think that we can have this extended season. We can have these Sundays as long as everybody follows the rules and everybody kind of does what you said and respect property and respect people's rights.
One thing I will just add real quick, Dan, is that if people want to know Crown land property, what it is, there's a fantastic publication that the province of Nova Scotia puts out. And as a matter of fact, all the lands and forest offices use it. It's called the Nova Scotia Atlas.
Yep.
And I do believe they're up to about the 7th or the 8th edition now. And for $30, you can't go wrong. If you want to go hunting, GPS, you look it up and you go, okay, that's Crown land, I'm good. Or it's private land, I'll have to check.
Yep.
It's all there. So anyway, that's all I've got to say on that. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Jim. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Addition to the Nova Scotia Atlas, there are a number of apps that are available now for those smartphones that will tell you exactly where you are, where all the Crown land is, and so on and so forth. But I think that if everybody, and I know that there wouldn't, if we didn't need rules, people would follow them, right? But we do, and if we follow the rules, I think that this can be a benefit. And I've mentioned it here a couple of times on the show that I think having youngsters learn the proper way to deal with firearms with a responsible adult, of course, it goes a lot further than what we pick up off of TV or on video games. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Yvonne to the program. Yvonne, how are you?
How you doing, Dan? I know you're doing well, so I won't keep on asking that question.
What's on your mind?
And just actually got a couple of things that I have on my mind that to get rid of. One of them is the daylight saving time, for sure, because I think it's like everybody else has been saying, it's been in my opinion, it was a thing that they needed in the past. We don't need it any longer. So anyhow, the second thing I really personally think that we should be getting rid of is the councillors, like the Monday morning councillors thing. And I don't know how many other people agree with this, because personally, in my opinion, I think we should get rid of it, because how much do we get out of it? Really, honestly, I don't think we get much out of it, because every time we get on there and ask questions to the councillors, sometimes we get some decent answers, and a lot of the times we don't get any decent answers. And I think for most of your listeners, if they listen to all the shows that you guys have been having and stuff like that, I think a lot of people will agree with me that really that you guys should find another something else to instead of the councillor on the hot seat, because really I don't think a lot of people are getting a lot of things out of them. And so in my opinion, I think it's a waste of time. I think that's another thing we should get rid of. Appreciate the feedback, Yvonne. Thank you. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I think that Councillors on the Hot Seat is a valuable segment on this program. The reason why is that
this is an opportunity for you to call and have access to counselors. Now, might not be your counselor, and you might not like their answer, or they may not answer the question, but you get an opportunity to ask the question and put them on the hot seat, right? There's not a lot of other places that you can do that anymore. I know counselors work very hard. The majority of them answer all their phone calls and all their emails, and but may not get back to you in a timely manner. Here's an opportunity for you to ask those questions. Again, might not like the answer, but at least you had the opportunity to ask the question. I think that Counselors on the Hot Seat is an important segment, and I think that we'll probably keep rolling with it, at least for the time being. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to James. James, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
What's on your mind?
Calling as a quick follow-up to Counselors on the Hot Seat.
Fair. Okay.
There was a challenge made to one of the counselors by one of your very regular callers, Gloria. She challenged Councillor White about where her campaign donations may have come from.
Sure.
I just wanted to let everybody know, I assumed that donations were public information, so I Googled, and it took me about 30 seconds.
Right.
And I found a list of everybody who donated to Councillor White's campaign.
Okay.
That's the law.
It is.
Anything over $50 to be precise.
Okay.
And so there they are. There's nobody listed that would appear to have any affiliation to the group that was of concern, but anyone could do this. It's public information for all the councillors, all the mayoral candidates, etc.
Well, I appreciate the update, James.
So, yeah, I'm going to make a quick editorial comment.
Sure.
I think that was a little bit out of bounds to kind of do that. Well, did you get a donation from? And it just a little bit of a smear. The caller could have looked up this public information just like I did and satisfied herself that no, that particular group did not donate. So I don't know, just a little bit. Maybe she was unaware. So now everyone's aware, including your famous caller, that donations to counselors are public information.
Appreciate the call, James.
Yep, you're welcome. Bye.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. A couple of emails to pass along to you from our discussion about Canada Post. This one comes to us from Rob. It says, for those cards that we get every 5 years, I think he's referring to driver's licenses and to the MSI card. We will allow Canada Post to make 1 day or a week of deliveries every 5 years. The rest of them, we don't need them. Time to get on to electric billing. People, that is comes to us from Rob. And I go back to what he said about Canada Post. I think that if we, to our callers' suggestion, to make that a full arm of the government rather than a arm's length Crown Corporation. I know that that's a bit of a misnomer or a contradiction of terms, but I wonder if the situation that it's in becomes much worse. Haven't come across many instances outside of perhaps the liquor store that Crown Corporations do very well. In fact, a lot of them don't and get mired in red tape. So what to do with Canada Post? I think that the federal government was pretty clear on what it wants to do with Canada Post, and that was the precipice for this strike, right? We saw a government say that we want to move away from home delivery, and we want to move to those super mailboxes that you see outside of the peninsula, right? And that was enough to get the unionized workers out on the street. So I think the government is pretty clear on what it wants to happen to try and turn the tide at Canada Post. There's still a lot of other issues. That's not the only one. We talked to Cup W on Friday about it, where it's part-time work and those kind of things. But that being said, if you followed any of the stories with Canada Post on Friday and through the weekend, you saw that some of the offers that were made to the union didn't appear in this latest package, right? Signing bonuses and those kind of things. So I don't think we're going to see an end of the Canada Post strike anytime soon. I think as we get closer to Christmas, maybe we'll be a little bit more of a demand for it. But I think that with the questions that get raised with Canada Post, and we've talked about them here on this program throughout the years, I think that we're going to eventually see the end of Crown Corporation type mail delivery in this country. I think it's going to end up getting turned over to the private sector, the Amazons of the world, or the other delivery services of the world. Purelator is a bad example because Canada Post owns a majority of that. But I think that we are probably going to see the end of that because, let's face it, those delivery companies that you all use, when you push the send button and you get stuff a day or two down the road, they kind of have logistics figured out, right? Now, I get it. If you're a business owner, I know it's expensive. Couriers are crazy expensive for business. Canada Post is by far the cheapest alternative. But I truly believe that we were going to come to see the end of a Crown Corporation mail delivery service or a mail service in Canada. But that's just my opinion. Thanks to each and every one of you that picked up the phone, dialed the numbers, and joined the conversation. You make my day each and every day that you do it. We're going to take a break here for the news. On the other side of it, nearly 9 in 10 Canadian parents say they can spot early signs of mental health challenges in their kids. A conversation with the director of the mental health and addictions at the IWK, Maureen Brennan, will be your guest. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Back in minutes.
Facts.
Welcome back. Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. New survey data showing Canadian parents feel confident in recognizing the early signs of mental health challenges in their kids, but many remain unaware of local support programs. According to a new survey that was conducted by the Harris Poll Canada, 88% of Canadian parents surveyed are confident in recognizing early signs of a mental health challenge in their kids. 85% believe they would know where and how to access support if needed, yet despite this confidence, a gap remains in the findings. 44% of parents surveyed unaware of local early intervention programs. Give us a little perspective on this. A couple of guests to join us today. Please welcome to the show the Director of Mental Health and Addictions at the IWK, Maureen Brennan. Maureen, welcome.
Good afternoon.
And also Dr. Jill Chorney, who's a clinical psychologist at the IWK. Dr. Chorney, appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Hi, thanks for having us.
I guess let's start there. Were you surprised that at the result or the number of parents that they say they were able to pick out those early warning signs in mental health issues with their kids?
No, we're not too surprised on that because given the last number of years, there's been much more focus and attention to mental health and wellness. And so I think given the information shared across, caregivers and parents are certainly more tuned in to looking for those across their children and then looking for supports across Nova Scotia.
So what supports are available to parents that may believe or think that their kids are going through an episode of this?
Both at the IWK and NS Health Mental Health and Addictions Program, they have a wide variety of supports and services to respond to children and youth in need. They have ambulatory community mental health and addictions clinics. We have clinicians across Nova Scotia schools. We have prevention and promotion services that go out into the community to support families and caregivers. And then we have a level of specialized services that are well connected to a variety of supports that youth and caregivers might need and benefit from.
Dr. Chorney, you're a clinical psychologist. How important is it to address these problems early?
Well, we know that mental health challenges affect 1 in 5. That's over 1 million children and youth every year. And for the majority of people living with a mental illness, their symptoms begin before age 18. So we know that early interventions can help to change the course of mental health concerns, can help build the strength in our youth, and can decrease any long-term impacts on health and well-being.
Is it, I'm just going back to my childhood, that's a few years ago, but is it Is it difficult to get kids to admit to their parents or to those in your organization that they maybe do have a problem? Or do they still hide it?
I think we're making a lot of gains when it comes to mental health stigma, and we're improving the conversation as we go. I think what's really important that we're tuning into here is the open communication between parents and children.
Right.
Sometimes children may not be in tuned or aware of what they're feeling, and parents can help them give language to that. And then we can continue to build on that within our support.
Is there any tips or hints for parents? Because I would imagine that would be a difficult conversation.
I think it's keep the conversation going and be ready when your child is ready to talk about it. Sometimes the best conversations happen in a car or when you're in a contained space, or can happen when you're tired. And I think the most important thing is being there and working on your child's timeline.
What kind of services, I know you highlighted them at the beginning, are available should I feel that my child needs your help?
Well, right now we have an amazing campaign going on in partnership with the Empire Company Limited and Sobeys Foundation, where together they partnered up with the 13 children's hospitals across Canada. And this is completely donor funded across Canada. And I'm happy to say that in the campaign is called Family of Support, and they've raised over $21 million across Canada. And each province is allocated with funds to advance the initiative that they want to move forward in the province. And so these types of services are amazing because they actually allow us to really dig in and support families and youth in a way that, that would really enhance the response. And so over the last 5 years, the partnership across the children's hospitals actually treated and provided more access to more than 220,000 children and youth across Canada.
Locally, is accessing service, is it difficult? We hear the stories about long waits for psychology services, particularly in adults. Is it the same situation for kids?
I would say that right across Nova Scotia, we have a central referral, a central intake, where any parent, any youth can call to make a direct referral and get access to a service that will support their needs. And we have urgent wait time bans and non-urgent wait time bans that we meet urgent up on average to 5 days before an urgent person is accessing care, and then a target of 28 days for non-urgent care, which we meet on average. We have 40-day wait until that time. And we always have other services that we look to front load and support youth and children in the schools as well.
Is the best way to access care, is that to get referred from your family doctor, or can you directly access it?
They can directly call. There's no referral needed from a family doctor. Any caregiver or youth can directly call or go online if they prefer to set up an appointment online as well.
Lots of information out there, Maureen, I would imagine. What's the best way to access that information if I'm a parent or if I'm a child?
You can certainly go on the IWK or NS Health Central Referral Access Point and call a direct central intake line, and anyone can get access right away.
Appreciate your time. Valuable information.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
That is Maureen Brennan, who is the Director of Mental Health and Addictions at the IWK, and Dr. Jill Chorney, a clinical psychologist over at the IWK. Mental health is something that has been a focus, and it happens to many families, and getting the help, as Dr. Chorney told us early, is absolutely paramount in addressing these kind of problems. We're going to stop. We're going to take another break. On the other side of it, I made a very expensive boo-boo this morning, and I'm going to tell you about it when we come back. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. I mentioned before the break that I made I shouldn't say a very expensive, but I made an expensive boo-boo this morning on my way to work. As you may or may not know, this show and the morning news, as I would be doing normally if Todd was in the chair, run very, very much on coffee. It's a caffeine-powered show. To get me through what has to go on, and I'm cheap, So I brew coffee at home, and I put it in a travel thermos, and I bring that to work, and that's what I drink during the day, and that way it saves me from spending a fortune on coffee. However, this morning I brewed a pot of coffee, and I poured it into my thermos, and I left it at home. So now I've been drinking expensive coffee all day today. And that is the subject of our next segment here on the program. And, of course, when we talk about food, we go to the Senior Director at the Agri-Food Analytics Lab over there at Dalhousie. And that is our good friend and the food professor, Sylvain Charlebois. Sylvain, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Dan. That is the most expensive coffee ever.
Right?
You have to pay twice.
Yeah. And and I'll tell you, and I'm sure people listening on the phone right now or on the radio right now are saying the same thing. Like, you go to the grocery store and you buy like 900 and whatever gram that is now. It's not even a kilo anymore, and it's well over $20.
Yeah, actually, so retail prices for coffee they've gone up 32% since January.
Wow.
So it's painful. It's been painful. Still cheaper to actually brew your own, unless, of course, your own kitchen sink is the biggest drinker of coffee, because sometimes people actually make a huge pot and they only drink a cup or two and they dump the rest. That gets expensive, of course. But you're lucky, Dan. I mean, your station is right next to many good coffee shops. So they saved you this morning.
They did save me this morning, but I did notice, or it's either happened or it's on its way, that the biggest in this country is about to raise their prices because of this coffee increase.
Yeah, the benchmark. I mean, Tim Horton's legacy, most people may not appreciate this, but Canada stands out as the country where people drink a lot of coffee outside the home. And that's Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons has actually pushed us to drink a lot of coffee outside the home. So whenever something happens to Tim Hortons, it's kind of a benchmark, especially when it comes to prices. And so every time Tim Hortons raise prices for coffee or your coffee cup, of course, everyone notices, everyone talks about it, and guess what? Other chains follow suit, with the exception perhaps of McDonald's. McDonald's is still offering its coffee cup. I believe it's a small size for $1. It's insane. That's a lost leader right there. They're losing money, but they want you in. They're using coffee as bait. But typically when Tim Hortons actually raises prices, you see other chains like Starbucks and Coffee Time raise prices as well because, well, let's face it, coffee is way more expensive. It's 50% more expensive than the 5-year average right now due to some issues in Brazil. I was actually in Brazil in June, and things were up and up when I was there, but because of La Niña doesn't bring a whole lot of moisture. It's quite dry, so they're not going to be producing as much coffee, and that's pushing prices much higher. So that's really the one factor that's pushing chains to increase prices.
Is coffee going to become a luxury good, Sylvain?
I'm looking at prices right now, and I honestly, so on the supply side, it's going to become more and more difficult to produce coffee beans. The Arabica bean, which is the most popular bean in the world right now, requires a specific climate. It needs to grow on mountain sides, and the weather has to be constant, and it's been difficult to get that. So on the supply side, I can see some pressures coming out of Brazil and Vietnam. Those are the top two producing countries, and we do drink a lot of coffee from both countries right here in Canada. And the other issue, of course, is demand. I mean, there's lots and lots of consumers in Asia in particular. When you reach the middle class, that's a symbol. If you can afford to let go of tea and drink coffee socially and mentally, it's a symbol that you've actually reached the middle class, and there are more and more people drinking coffee in Asia.
It's wild because, I mean, growing up, coffee was always, the one of the cheaper alternatives, to brew a pot of coffee instead of, going to buy a bottle of Coke or whatever else. But it's soon going to get to the point where we're going to hit a saturation point. Sylvain, we saw Starbucks close some stores across Canada. We know that Starbucks coffee price point is higher than that of McDonald's and Tim Hortons, but would or could Tim Hortons get to a point where it hits that saturation point and people just stop buying that double-double?
Well, I mean, when you look at Tim Hortons right now, I think it has reached a saturation. I mean, there are Tim Hortons everywhere, really. Growth, the chain is growing, but outside of Canada. I mean, there are more and more stores outside of Canada, so it's supporting RBI, Restaurant Brands International, which owns Tim Hortons. So numbers are pretty solid, but it's really because of the growth they're getting out of Canada. But the one thing that concerns coffee shops are the younger generations. I know when I teach at Dal, or I'm teaching at McGill this year in Montreal, not many students show up in a classroom with a cup of coffee. I see a lot of, energy drinks or drinks with a lot of sugar, not necessarily like good old coffee cups. I'm seeing less of that, and I think that chains are concerned about that. There is a bit of a trend there pushing younger generations to move away from coffee. So that may actually help the older generations like you and I, Dan, or the boomers or anyone else.
Is this why we've seen as of recent times that that coffee shops that traditionally was a coffee and a donut shop expand their menus to try and entice additional people into the stores because it's just not a cheap cup of coffee anymore?
Yeah, probably. I mean, when's the last time you went to Tim Hortons? I mean, I visited quite a few Tim Hortons in the HRM, and let me tell you, I'm 55 years old, and I brought the average age down. I mean, so there's something there. I mean, there are a lot of older generations that are hooked on Tim Hortons, and that's not going to change, but they're going to consume less and less coffee as they age. And so this is certainly something that concerns the coffee industry. But keep in mind, Canada loves coffee. 78% of Canadians actually will drink coffee on a regular basis. That's 2.7 cups a day, the seventh highest in the world. So we love coffee here.
Here's the $1 million question, Sylvain. I mentioned it off the top that, a stroll down the coffee aisle at the grocery store makes one think about a second mortgage for one's house. The blue can stuff is $22. The red can stuff is $21 or $23. Have we hit the peak of this, or is coffee going to continue to spiral out of control?
So people may not know this, but we actually applied counter tariffs on coffee and tea from March the 4th to September 1st. And so I was actually talking to a grocer last week, and they're slowly going through, they're slowly ending their inventory that actually was tariffed. So I'm actually expecting, retail-wise, I'm expecting coffee to drop in price over the next several weeks. So stay tuned, pay attention. You may actually see some deals retail, while in food service at the restaurant, well, I'm expecting the opposite. I'm expecting prices to rise. So because 32% in 9 months, that's a lot. And that's due to the fact that, well, coffee is more expensive, but counter tariffs just didn't help. But they're gone now since September 1st.
Not to mention the shrinkflation, right?
Yep. Oh, absolutely. People love shrinkflation, I can tell you.
So I appreciate your time, and go get yourself a cup of coffee.
Absolutely. You take care, Dan.
Take care. That's Dr. Sylvain Charlebois. Holy smokes. Coffee is expensive. Leaving coffee at home is expensive because not only did I have to brew it and now throw it out, I had to buy more just to be able to function, because Vanessa will tell you, a dam without coffee is like a day without sunshine. $22 a can. I was blown away. And that's the normal, I'm not going to say any brand names, but you know what I'm talking about, the blue can and the red can, right? And like the other stuff has always been a little bit more expensive, like the brand name, the Tim Horton stuff, or the McDonald's can, or the Starbucks can, which is always really expensive. But the run of the mill cheap coffee, as it gets called in my house, is $22 for and it's not even a kilo anymore. Holy smokes! What kind of world are we going? Can you? I don't even want to think about a world without coffee. It could be a pretty scary place. We're going to stop. And speaking of scary places, those of you that ride transit buses, this is what we call a segue in the business, know that sometimes the ride on that bus or at the bus terminal can be a scary place with a rise of violent incidents being reported across HRM on buses. Some disturbing news, at least from my perspective on things, from the Board of Police Commissioners last week. They say that it won't be any time soon before Halifax regional police officers are riding on the bus. How are we going to get people to ride the bus if A, they're not on time, and B, you don't feel safe doing it? I think it's a losing battle. A conversation with the president of the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 508. That's Patricio Garcia. When we come back, you're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Time for coffee. We're back in minutes.
Axe.
Read our next guest's work if you read Legion magazine, and has been published on a number of different things, but his latest offering is called Oceans of Fate, A Peace and Peril Aboard the Empress of Asia, and it released earlier this year, and I'm very pleased to welcome into the studio the author of the book, and that's Dan Black. Dan, how are you?
Hey, how are you, Dan? It's good to be here. Thanks a lot for having me on.
I often ask authors this question because and I call myself I'll say struggling writer. I get started and then I get busy and I move on. A lot of authors refer to their books like they're children. They take over your life when you start doing them. Tell me a little about the genesis of why you decided to focus on the Empress of Asia and that story.
I like the Empress of Asia, and you're right about the connection with our family. It's like a child because you really do have to keep your eye on it. But I picked the Empress of Asia because it was a ship with two personalities. It came off in the yard in Scotland as a beautiful passenger ship, and then in 1914 it becomes a cruiser, a ship, to serve in the war, and. With that in mind, what happened was it changed dramatically. Some of the fine furnishings were hauled off the ship, and I got a new crew coming on board, but there were some that were retained. And I also liked it because after the war, it went back to original purpose, which was a passenger liner, and through the Roaring '20s and the Great Depression, and then bang, back again into war service as a troop ship. And that's how she ended up in Halifax at one point.
And ended up getting torpedo bombed, did it not?
It was not torpedo bombed. It was bombed by Japanese aircraft just off Singapore. It had been attacked twice on the way into Singapore. So we're talking February 1942. And on the 4th of February, it was hit. It had about 2,235 British troops on board, a bunch of much-needed armaments and equipment for besieged Singapore, which was falling soon. And then there was a crew on board of 413. So these were big ships with big crews. And so she was hit on the 4th. The bombs missed her, straddled her, but caused some concussion damage. And then the next day, on February 5th, she was destroyed and set afire by Japanese aircraft.
Tell me about its visit, the Empress of Asia's visit here to Halifax.
Okay, well, that's an interesting story because she arrived here in mid-September 1941. And last night I was standing on your waterfront. I'm trying to picture her coming in and what she looked like. And oh my goodness, she was a beat-up old coal burner. She, she was almost, she was 28 years old at that point, and she was scarred. She looked like she'd been through a lot. And when she came in, there was an incident where a number of military personnel refused to board because of her state. And they did do an investigation into it, and they did determine that she was verminous, she was dirty. There's one young Air Force fellow who was about to board who described, lots of nasty stuff on board, including left over actually when Italian prisoners of war had been honored previously. They had been dropped off at Durban from the Suez, and they left fecal calling cards in the cabins and oozing sacks of rotten potatoes down in the hold. And so it wasn't a very nice ship, and they refused to get on board. But they were pushed on board. They were ordered on board, the troops, about 2,000 enlisted men and officers. And then though some tried to get off, and in fact, according to local press, some threw ropes over the side to climb off the ship. You can imagine this happening when she's about to lead off in a very interesting and historic convoy, HX-150, which was the first Atlantic convoy escorted by U.S. Navy escorts. So it was a big thing here in Halifax when that was going on. But she did get away, and she did make it eventually safely across the North Atlantic back to Liverpool. And from there, she would begin her voyage of doom, as I call it. She would eventually head off and around to Singapore.
Researching these things, it's a journey, right? It takes a significant amount of time. Did you imagine you had just a bevy of sources to gather it from?
I did, and that's a really good question, because with a book like this, I was trying to write a human history of a ship.
Right.
So that meant reaching out around the globe to archives and museums, but more importantly to people that had a family connection to the ship. So you're talking about grandchildren, children who remember Papa being on the ship, and they produced some marvelous letters, photographs, and that just didn't happen in Canada. That went around the world, particularly in the UK, and that, of course, started during the pandemic when we were in the midst of that, and things were pretty well shut down. But yeah, it worked out. It was a long road.
How cool was it to be able to stand on the waterfront and just kind of visualize what was going on with actual living history?
It was absolutely amazing. I mean, I've been to Halifax before. In fact, I've been on ship out of here. But still, it strikes you how incredible important this city was to wartime history. And I could just picture the Empress of Asia coming in mid-September 41 and the state she was in. And I could also, I suppose, sense the fear that was in the hearts of young men who were about to embark on these ships.
Right, and not necessarily, and obviously the verminous state of the ship was one thing aside, but those convoys were less than safe, right?
They were. Well, there was SC-42, which was decimated off Greenland just days before that the Asia arrived here. So you're right. There was lots of fear in the air, and but these were young men. Some felt quite invincible, but I've managed to find information from those who were on board and some of their comments as they were sailing in HX-150 on the Empress of Asia, and they were, hoping they would get across safely.
Yeah, if you haven't read any of the history of some of those convoys, it's some of it's just jaw-dropping, the stuff that happened out
Absolutely.
there. So with this ship was dive bombed by the Japanese off of Singapore, it burnt, and it's still on the bottom, right?
Well, it did. It caught fire from midship out, so that meant that everybody on board, so you're talking, like I said, 2,235 troops, but also the crew, large crew. And so as she was burning, I have to say, too, that the crew, the DEMS crew, these were men that were trained to fire back.
Right.
They fired back on the Japanese aircraft, but while the ship was burning, everybody else was kind of congregating on the bow and on the stern. But the other horrific aspect of the story was during the attack, most of those troops were not up fighting. They were told to go down below and wait things out until the event was over. And there's reports that we found and information we found from those British troops that were down below, not knowing what was going on up top.
Freaky.
And yeah, very scary. And at one point, the ship put her anchor down, and those men down there thought the ship was breaking up. So it was a very harrowing experience. And then, of course, a lot of them ended up in the water and swam for it. They were picked up by various vessels. Now, it's important, too, to note here as well that that a lot of the ship's crew became prisoners of war. There were 154 that ended up in Japanese POW camps, so they they weren't liberated until 1945, so 42 to 45. And there's some really interesting stories about what some of those crew members went through while they were POWs.
If you want to learn more, obviously the book's available for sale, but Dan is here in Halifax. He's at the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic tomorrow night to give an illustrated talk on Oceans of Fate, Peace and Peril aboard the Empress of Asia. Appreciate you spending some time with us today, Dan, and all the best. And hopefully you'll have a packed house there tomorrow night.
Let's hope for it. And thank you very much, Dan, for your time.
That's Dan Black. The book available everywhere, I assume?
Yeah, it is. It's out there. Yeah.
Okay, so again, at the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic tomorrow night, you can catch that. And it'll be fascinating. It's this kind of history, really, and with the connection to Halifax is particularly interesting. That's going to about do it for today's show, everybody. Appreciate you all for joining us. Thank you to Vanessa Vananez behind the glass for doing what she does every day. Have a fantastic evening, everybody, and remember, be well and be kind to one another. Welcome back to the Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. If you were following the Board of Police Commissioners meeting last week, you saw and you learned that it doesn't appear that it will be anytime soon that Halifax regional police officers will be taking a ride regularly on a bus in and around HRM as we continue to learn more about violent incidents happening aboard buses to both passengers and to drivers. This from the Chronicle Herald. It reads, as Halifax Transit faces an escalation in violent incidents, Halifax Regional Police Chief Don McLean said his members won't be assisting on buses. A report to the Board of Police Commissioners showed that transit operators and passengers were involved in 427 violent incidents based on data obtained from 2022 through 2024. HRP dealt with 93% of the incidents, while RCMP handled the other 7%, according to the data. A suggestion of having police officers periodically ride problematic transit routes flatly denied by McLean. This is the quote. He said, "We have no intention at this time to put police officers on buses." Please welcome to the program the president of the union that represents transit operators in HRM, and that's Patricio Garcia. Patricio, how are you?
Not too bad. Yourself, Dan?
Good. Your thoughts on that comment from the police chief?
Well, I'm kind of questioning what his mandate is. I thought the police chief's mandate was to protect the citizens of the HRM. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, people riding transit, people operating transit, they're citizens of the HRM. So is he flat out refusing to protect a segment of this population that he is supposed to be committed to protecting?
Patricio, 427 violent incidents in 2022 through 24, and I know we've chatted a few times this year, and those numbers are up again this year. That 427 to the average person, really, there's no context to that. How bad is it for drivers on those buses?
It can be certainly pretty bad. We've had 2 incidents of assaults within the last couple of weeks. One of them involved spitting. I believe the second one may have involved spitting as well. So, I mean, certainly, some of our drivers are certainly, scared to be on the buses. Specifically at night, we're having quite the escalation, particularly at the Bridge Terminal and at Lacewood Terminal. Drivers are having problems when they're getting off the bus. They're being harassed as they're walking to the bathrooms, and certainly the escalation on the buses between passengers, that certainly is a problem that our members have been telling us about.
Now, are police not stationed at the Bridge Terminal and Lacewood Terminal?
They are. We have a police officer stationed at Lacewood Terminal for a few hours. I think it's 4 or 5 hours during the day, primarily when Halifax West gets out. We have a police officer that's stationed at the Bridge Terminal roughly around the same time as Dartmouth High gets out. The issue is not with the fact that, they're not at the terminals, because certainly we do appreciate them being at the terminal. It's the fact that once the bus leaves the terminal and it's en route, the driver is by themselves. I mean, they are by themselves until they get to the next terminal, right? And that's where a lot of the problems are going on. And it's not as if we asked to have police officers on absolutely every single route. We asked for periodic, once in a while traveling, and to have the message sent out to the citizens of the city and particularly the people riding the buses that police could be on the bus, right? They could be undercover, they could be uniformed, but the chance of having them on the bus at any given time, that would be enough of a deterrent to help reduce some of the incidents on the bus. So it's kind of disheartening to hear the police chief say that even random ride-alongs isn't something that they're going to be pushing forward. So perhaps this is something that we're going to have to take up with Commissioner Bill Moore there, his superior, and see what he says about that.
Patricio, what's the procedure now if there's an incident aboard a bus? What's our drivers instructed to do?
They are instructed to call for help. So they're instructed to call the control center, and the control center then contacts police if police is warranted, and then it's a matter of time until police and supervisors show up. So, depending on where they are in relation to where the police are and the supervisors are, depends on how long it is before someone gets out to them. We have some more remote locations, that a bus is traveling. Certainly when you're out in Heron Cove, when you're out in the West Bedford area, when you're out in Sackville, you're a little bit further away from the centers of where you would normally see police congregating and our supervisors, so the response times certainly are going to be a little bit more lengthy.
Yeah, I can imagine it would all and traffic and all of those things along those lines, and a lot can happen in minutes if there's a violent incident happening aboard a bus, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's certainly our drivers are by themselves for a good percentage of their shift. 80 to 90% of the time they are by themselves driving that vehicle, and they really only have interaction with other staff at terminals generally.
Patricio, we know we've talked about it in the past that there's a screen that was installed on transit buses. How effective is that screen?
The screen certainly has reduced the physical assaults, but when you have somebody yelling and screaming at you, and they're frothing at the mouth, and they're calling you names, and they're slurring, they're throwing racial comments towards you, it can be quite scary if they're shaking that shield, smashing that shield. There's also the fact that, the shields aren't 100% enclosed, so people can certainly throw something around that shield, can spin around that shield, so contact is not 100% cut off from the driver with that shield.
Now, we know a lot of time and effort is being spent on trying to get people to ride Halifax Transit, to get on the bus and get out of their cars. In your opinion, if this safety issue doesn't go unchecked, do you think that's going to impact the ability to get people out of their cars?
Absolutely. I mean, if a potential rider is listening to this now and listen to what the chief of police said, and basically heard from him that it sounds like he has no interest in protecting the public that's on the buses, by having the occasional police officer ride, why would you want to get out of your vehicle and take a bus when your safety could be at risk? The city, along with the police chief, who's sworn to protect the citizens of this city, should be looking at ways to protect absolutely everybody on transit. That way, that transit can be more appealing to the riding public, and certainly getting people out of their vehicles. We have a traffic problem in the city, and we need to do absolutely everything to make that traffic problem go away. And the big part of that solution is to get people to take transit. Obviously, redesigning some of the routes and making transit more reliable is going to certainly help with that. But safety on the buses is right up there with the redesigning and the more reliability.
Is it kids, Patricio? Is it adults? Is it a mix of both?
Mix of both. Certainly, we are seeing a lot of youth that are congregating around terminals and having a problem, but certainly on the buses, it's a mix of both. It's both the adults are, later on at night, they're the ones that are, getting into it with operators, and certainly the kids during the day. We're seeing a lot of that during the day, particularly when we're driving the people home from school, particularly high schools. So.
We know that that there was a pilot project that was released a few years ago that gave out free passes to students in an effort to get them to ride the bus. Is that contributing to the problem, or is it being effective and people are learning how to use transit?
I think it's helping contribute to the problem, because we certainly have a lot more people that are taking the bus because now it's a free option for them, particularly those high school kids. So it's giving them an opportunity to congregate at terminals and congregate on the buses. Some of them are taking the bus for even short distances, even if it's 1 or 2 stops now.
What's next steps? Where do you go from here? I know you mentioned you were going to reach out to the police chief's boss.
I think that is the next step, that and going to the CAO and possibly talking to some of the people that are on the Board of Police Commissioners, reaching out to some of the councils. I had a meeting with a councillor this morning, Sean Cleary, and I had told him about what the police chief had said, and I had brought up some of the issues with that. So certainly this is something that we're going to have to take further, because certainly, police have to be on board with helping make transit safer, and it's certainly disheartening to hear that the police chief feels like that he has no want to help in being part of that solution.
Patricio, is this leading to people refusing work for unsafe conditions?
We've had people that have refused work after they've been assaulted. Certainly, that will raise as people start to feel more and more unsafe as they're being threatened. We've had a few that have been threatened, and the person that's threatened them has gotten off the bus, but that person certainly refused to drive after that because they were certainly emotionally drained. We're having people that are refusing to drive after they've had racial slurs thrown at them, again because it was emotionally taxing on them. So certainly that can lead to refusals. And then, of course, with refusals and a shortage of drivers, then we start to see route cancellations, right? Absolutely. That's certainly going to raise in the route cancellations. We don't have enough standby people around the city to fill in routes, and certainly it takes time to get those standby people to the right places. So some of the recourse is to cancel routes, because that sometimes is the easiest way to deal with the situation of a driver refusing. Patricio, appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much. That is, have a good day. Patricio Garcia. He is the president of the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 508. HRP's police chief flatly saying we're not putting officers on buses anytime soon. We're going to reach out to Chief McLean from this program to see if he'll come onto the show and explain some reasons why. Because as I mentioned, and I think Patricio mentioned as well, I think if we're going to try to convince people to ride the bus, they got to be on time and it's got to be safe. When we come back, oh boy, this is going to be a read that I don't think I'm going to be able to put down. The new book out there, it's called Oceans of Fate, Peace and Peril Aboard the Empress of Asia. The book's author, Dan Black, will be your guest. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're back in minutes.